YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after Week 2's Thursday night football game between the Bengals and the Browns. I'm here to recap it, give you my main takeaways here, and what to expect from these teams in the future. We do this video every single Friday for that Thursday night game. Every single Monday, we recap all the Sunday games. The Monday games usually recapped on the Wednesday night podcast, but all of it, basically anything you hear today or in these recaps, are already said on the Twitter. So that Twitter's a must follow, constantly talking throughout live games, even after the games, with my thoughts. So check out that Twitter, link in the description, the comments, Instagram, podcast, Patreon, all kinds of stuff going on there with the Goat House. So link in the description, the comments for any of those things. We much appreciate if you can check it out. Trying to reach 60K subscriber goal. If you're new here, we got full coverage. We got weekly predictions. I do score predictions. I got power rankings updated every single week in videos like these, always adding more as well. So would really appreciate a subscription there. And again, that Patreon has a bunch of extra content, more score predictions, locks of the week. So yeah, again, there's a link in the description and comments for that. So check it out. Be much appreciated. But final score of this game was a 35-30 Browns victory. And we see the Browns go from only scoring 6 points against the Ravens to scoring 35 here. And the Bengals struggling a little offensively against a good Chargers defense to putting up 30 here. So a little more offense. It's good to see a little more offense here. And my prediction was 27-23, so a little extra scoring there. And about the differential there was pretty close. I had 4 point. It was 5 point for the Browns there winning. So kind of, recapping from the start, I think the Browns came out the gate, right away, just playing some good offense, and that really stands out. That's a top takeaway here is the play calling, and that kind of goes into Baker because Stefanski coming from Minnesota here to Cleveland, and he brings that same system, which is you're gonna value running the ball. You're gonna value running the ball, and that will open up the play action pass. Now some people kind of make the mistake of this. You don't really need to start the game running the ball to open up the play action pass. You just have to have a solid run game. You need that team, that defense to fear the run game, and that works here in Cleveland because any time they step on the field, that team is going to be thinking about Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt there, and they're going to fear the running game. They're going to be worried about it a little bit at least, and so you can open up that play action right off the bat. That's why it's a perfect situation for Stefanski. He has the weapons in place, and right off the bat, they start with the play action pass, and I love that, There's been times in the past where Stefanski, needs to start with the run, it felt like, or got conservative at times, and I did not see that in this game. I love what I saw. And kind of going back to Stefanski with Minnesota, Kirk Cousins extremely, accurate and successful on the play-action passes. You're almost calling for more of it in the past because how good, they were on play-action. And you see Baker just as accurate, some impressive throws. And I'm thinking, that's kind of my main takeaway from this. I'm thinking Baker could be even better than a guy like Kirk Cousins in this system. And that's because he has that extra, that bonus to his game, and that's using his legs. Not only to be able to run, you get that bootleg, you can use his legs and run for that first down. If no one's open, he can run for some yards. Anybody will take that. But getting out of the play action and getting outside the pocket so much quicker than a guy like Kirk Cousins is so impressive because you're out there. It creates more time to kind of scan the field because sometimes in the play action, you fake the handoff, you get out the pocket, and you pretty much got to throw it right away. But Baker looked just so, and we knew he can use his legs. We already knew that before this game. I knew that before this game, but actually impressive in that department. Really just getting out there so fast, so quick. In the ability to kind of scan the field because he gets out there so quick, and he was dead accurate. I think he actually has a little more velocity, a little more zip on the ball, than a guy like Cousins as well. So a lot of upside for Baker Mayfield in this new Stefanski offense here for the Browns, and that is kind of my main takeaway from this game, something I'm very excited about going forward. There was a real lack of designed play-action rollouts last year for the Browns, so it's something new, and he was already able to impress. Yeah, maybe played against a little weaker defense, but this is where you start. This is where you start here. So really excited about that. That's probably my number one, impressive takeaway there from the game. Love the play calling. Never got conservative. There was one point where the Bengals got the goal line stop, and credit to the Bengals for I guess, short yardage run defense. DJ Reader, I think, plays a big part of that. They didn't have Geno Atkins, but credit to them. But the Browns did get predictable down there, only having one wide out, being a tight end on first and second down. It was pretty darn obvious that, they were running the ball, and that made it easy for the Bengals. Defense is a guessing game, and that's why I always say for offenses, for play callers, be unpredictable. For the most part, this game, pretty much all of besides that part I'm talking about, Stefanski and his play calling is very unpredictable, and that opened things up. Even a guy like Odell had a bounce-back game, big-time game. The run game was absolutely dominant. Didn't help that the Bengals tackling was a big-time issue in this game, but you got to credit guys like Chubb and Kareem Hunt hitting the hole very hard, and then being able to, make the moves after the hole, at the next level and, breaking those tackles. But the tackling was pretty poor for the most part for the Bengals. So that stood out for the Browns there, the dominant run game. Sheldon Richardson was everywhere in this game, getting that interior pressure, even getting outside at times, tracking guys downfield for a defensive tackle. Very, very impressive. And we were just talking about, relating Stefanski with the Vikings. Can bring up Richardson with the Vikings. The Vikings have missed him now it's going to be on 2 years so much, and you see how talented he is. And now the Browns, having him with Myles Garrett, obviously not the same position, but next to each other, it's big time. Denzel Ward really stood out. He's not really a big body corner at all, but the physicality, very underrated for Denzel Ward there. He'll put your hands on you. His hands on you, and he'll, in a non-pass interference way, obviously, and that'll affect the game. So a feisty young corner that was extremely impressive, even down the stretch of the game when it was almost garbage time, not giving up, making big-time plays. There is a play, and this kind of goes into the negative I have for the Bengals, the weapons. It was a little underwhelming with some of those weapons, and not, it's something I'm waking up this morning and think about that nobody's really talking about that, how disappointing those, because these Bengals weapons are supposed to be very good. I thought Denzel Ward kind of shut down a lot of those guys, AJ Green when he's on him, what Ward just looked like the better player most of the time on him. He's, it was sticking on him, was very physical. So yeah, I thought Denzel Ward really stood out along with Sheldon Richardson. Those were kind of the defensive MVPs of the game there. Tough to pick one. I'd probably pick Sheldon Richardson if I have to pick one because, how dominant he was early to kind of get the Browns the ball back and get their offense rolling. Pass protection was great, factoring in that, how beat up this offensive line was. Even though most of the guys, everybody besides Jack Conklin played, these guys were still beat up. They were game-time decisions. Wills, Treader, Hubbard, the backup for Conklin, was even game-time decision, and he was a guy that struggled last year. So you almost expected these guys to get beat quite a bit tonight, even though there's a lot of upside and a lot of promise to this offensive line, but they didn't. They played very well. Baker's time to throw was ridiculous, the amount of time he had to throw. Sometimes the play action, he got out there quick, but he was able to sit out there for quite a long time. That's going to be a knock on the Bengals pass rush there. That's they got to win in that category. They got to win. Maybe not a weaker offensive line, but maybe on this day, in this game, you expected, like I said, the offensive line not to be to full strength, and it's not, looking at it that way, it's definitely not one of the stronger offensive lines, and the Bengals just had nothing there. Baker was able to sit there and scan the field, and to me, that was, the major difference in this game. People look at it and say, yeah, Baker made the big-time plays. The run game, the dual running back made the big-time plays. The Bengals couldn't tackle, and those were big differences, major impacts. But to me, the biggest difference was the amount of time these quarterbacks had to throw, and that factors into offensive line, the pass protection, and the pressure. And the Browns were very strong in both categories, and the Bengals were very weak in both categories. Baker had all the time in the world to throw. Credit to the offensive line and protecting him. The Bengals pass rush just couldn't get after him. Unacceptable. And the opposite. Bengals offensive line, very poor. Almost could expect it, though. We know it's going to be a bottom tier, right there at the bottom in terms of, offensive line. So that's unfortunate. But Yeah, that was the difference. I blame the pass rush of the Bengals a lot because the number one blame, what's got to be better is the pass protection, but it was almost expected from me at least going in this game. The pass rush, I was a little worried about the Browns going into this game because I thought the Bengals get a decent pass rush here. And I talked about all this on Twitter. I think, the tackling was an issue, but you look at the Bengals defense. DJ Reader, he's very solid on the inside. It's pretty much a one-man show trying to stop the run there. They didn't have Geno Atkins, who's a big-time defensive tackle in this league. They'll get him back. You look at the linebackers. Yeah, there's some pretty weak play from the linebackers, but you got a lot of young guys. You got Jermaine Pratt, rookie last year. You got Wilson, rookie this year. Gaither, a rookie this year. A lot of young guys that you think have potential. Nothing's guaranteed, but you think these guys can grow and get better with more experience. That's very logical. You look at the safety group. It felt like I talked about DJ Reader kind of had to carry the game and the team in run support. But for the most part, it felt like this was a Jesse Bates defense. This is the only guy out here. Mackenzie Alexander was okay at times as well, so I don't want to knock everybody. But it felt like this is Jesse Bates' defense. Jesse Bates, Von Bell, pretty good young safety duo that'll get better. The corners, William Jackson. William Jackson made a good play on that late interception. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's a playmaker's play right there. But remember, Trey Wayne's not there yet. Trey Wayne's a pretty good corner. So what I'm getting at is every one of these units, except for one, is going to continue to get better. That brings us to the defensive ends in this 4-3, which is the pass rush. They're really no help in the run game, which is okay in some cases if they're heavily involved in the pass rush game. They're really not. Defense, I'd say the biggest need in this team for the Bengals is offensive line, obviously. Next is definitely defensive end. We see how important pass rush. And like I said, the biggest difference in the game was quarterback time, and that plays a part in offensive line and pass rush. The two things that the Bengals are extremely weak at, and that's the difference. And you can look back to last week. You can look back to last year. Most of the time, that is the difference in almost every single game is the pass rush and the pass protection. So important. So important in today's NFL. Maybe not even just today's, every NFL, whatever era it was, but especially today. So that is something that stood out. But yeah, kind of going to the weapons. Like I said, I woke up this morning thinking, why isn't anybody talking about this? I looked through. It's a tough task because Burrow didn't really have too much time to throw. And to kind of go back to the one positive I have, and you do got to credit the Bengals for that goal line side. Maybe the short yardage when it's obvious running downs, then they're pretty solid. DJ Reader in those situations. I thought Jesse Bates was okay today. It was great last week. But Joe Burrow, I think, really stood out. There was a couple early throws that he missed. It's unlike Joe Burrow, under a lot of pressure. But he really picked it up. I mean, throwing it over 60 times and having over a 60% completion percentage when you're constantly under pressure in your second NFL game, pretty impressive. I thought his weapons actually let him down as well. So Joe Burrow, at the end of the day, that's a pretty darn good second NFL game given to what's around him. But at the same time, what's around him should be better. So now I finally get into the weapons. Joe Mixon was actually you can't say he was bad. He was a little disappointing in this game, though. And it is tough to judge on because they couldn't really use him fully because they're coming from behind. And they also had Gio Bernard in there a ton, and that's probably because he can pass protect a little better. But then that kind of knocks them for I like the Mixon deal, but that kind of knocks them, for if he can't be involved that much in a situation like this, and that's a little disappointing. But even on his runs, his very few runs that he had, I actually thought he was bouncing a bit, bouncing away from the holes. Nothing that I'm concerned about long term. But there was a key moment down when the Bengals were, in the on the goal line really, and they actually got a pass interference call to get them there. To get the right inside the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, whatever it was there, and they gave it to Mixon, and Mixon decided to bounce this ball out to the outside. And running backs are taught not to do this unless you are over 100% certain it is wide open, nothing is out there. And usually when running backs get away with this, it's one of those situations where it's really it's a bad play on his part, but it ends up working. It's one of those situations. And there was a whole load of defenders out there, and he was definitely not taught to do that there. So, and that maybe lost him 4 yards. And you had a Tyler Boyd drop down there as well, and very unlike Tyler Boyd there's, and that cost them, made them kick the field goal as well between Boyd and Mixon there. So 2 examples of disappointments there from the weapons. And A.J. Green, the best way to explain it, he kind of looked old in this game. He kind of looked like he's starting to decline a little bit. We've seen some drops. Some of these weren't perfect throws because Burrow had to get it out very quick. We've seen him, jump a little late for a ball, jump a little early for a ball. Denzel Ward, pretty much locked him down, and that's something that really, even though Ward's a very good young corner, it's really something that shouldn't happen. Talking about lock him down. There was a play late in the game. I don't know if you guys remember. Wish I had the exact time. But it was a slant for A.J. Green, and that was probably the more disappointing ones out of all of them. I don't know what A.J. Green was doing. It was a slant. Burrow threw it. He threw it pretty quick, and I think the announcers, Joe Buck, Aikman, said, and that's an off-target throw by Burrow. You look back at it, it really wasn't. A.J. Green really wasn't running his route. He kind of got into the chest of Denzel Ward, which receivers are taught to never to do. That's almost number one. Denzel Ward was able to stay in front of him. There was really no route. It was pretty much just running to Denzel Ward, really look for the ball late. And maybe in that play call, there was no indication that A.J. Green was getting the ball there, but Burrow threw it. So very confused about that one. So a little disappointed with Mixon. Nothing I'm concerned about long term, though. Boyd picked it up in that last drive, of course, but that drop cost them, and A.J. Green did not look himself in this game, even though Burrow there was a couple throws early may have had him. The first throw of the game was a heck of a catch by Green, but Burrow kind of missed him on that one. So a little disappointing in a group of weapons that is supposed to be very good, but Burrow's time to throw didn't really help the whole, pretty much everything. Pass protection, we talked about it. It's the worst in football. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for Joe Burrow because we can see how good he can be, and they're going to get this guy killed out there. So it's Burrow's a tough dude, though, but it's a little unfortunate. We talked about the pass rush. They need to get more of it. Disappointing from guys like Dunlap. It's a game they need to get in there, and they just couldn't get in there, and they're very disappointing in helping the run. At least if you can't get after the quarterback, what you're mainly paid to do, what your main job is, be involved in run support, and they just weren't. And tackling was a major issue. The first guy missed every single time. There was some poor attempts and poor effort there. Joe Burrow's really the only good takeaway. Like I said, Jesse Bates, pretty solid. Too much responsibility, so that made his job harder. DJ Reader, not going to knock him in this game either. They're missing Geno Atkins. They're missing Trey Waynes, obviously. Some young guys that could step up eventually. There is another positive thing here, actually. A positive takeaway going forward. And that is... This was, as you could see by the green, the red here, the positive, negatives, and everything I explained, the Browns dominated this game. They dominated this game. They really did. On every aspect, they won this game. They dominated this game. But, and I'm not really focused on the 5-point difference because the Bengals scored late. But if you watch the game, the Bengals were kind of in this game. Like I said, if that Boyd didn't drop the ball, if Mixon didn't bounce that ball outside, that could have been a touchdown instead. This could have been a different game. And the Bengals were in this game. Even though the Browns had the lead the whole time, the Bengals had a shot in this game. And that's kind of the one negative there for the Browns. They let Cincinnati stick around. And this is not a game they should let somebody stick around. So that's a positive for the Bengals because it's pretty disastrous here. You had one player that really stood out. Everything was bad. And a lot of young mistakes, too. If they get going, only the quarterback's second game here. And that plays a part with everybody. Everybody around him, even the coaching staff, only their second game, really. So if they really get going and clean some things up and some guys develop, get better, which they should, that's a good thing because they could win a game like this then. They could definitely win a game like this, even a game they had no business being in. So that's kind of a positive takeaway, and that's a negative from the Browns. And that, even though I think I am very high on Baker in this Stefanski system, it should work great. The knock on the Stefanski system, sometimes he does get a little conservative. Didn't see that in this game, but the knock on it is it's not a come-from-behind system. When they're down, you're not really. You saw that last week against the Ravens. I know the Ravens are a really good team because I kind of bring back to the teams need to fear the run to kind of open up the play action, or play action just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I talk about it all the time. Defense is a guessing game. It becomes predictable. When they're down, they're going to pass the ball. Can't really use play action. So this won't be a come from behind team, even if it's not that much of a deficit. They got to come from behind, and they can kind of let teams back in the game, because when they're up, they do want to run the ball a little bit. They did keep it open by passing in this game. Baker did throw that interception. I'm not going to complain about that one too much. Because I like the idea of throwing there. It was a really good jumped route by William Jackson. Yeah, poor decision by Baker, but everything looks so good there. The footwork, stepping up, avoiding the sack, and then just letting it sling. The bullet velocity on that from Baker was great, and everything was kind of getting me off my seat like, wow, here comes a wow play, and then William Jackson jumps the route. Good play by him. So it's just one of those plays where you're starting to get really excited for Baker, a little bit of a letdown, but I don't really mind that too much. Yeah, it kind of let the Bengals back in the game, but you can't really toss out too much blame there. But this is a game where the Browns should not let the Bengals in whatsoever. I was talking about it heading into the season. I am worried about the defense a little bit. They had some good pass rush from guys. Myles Garrett had that strip sack. Almost forgot about that. So that was a huge play. So Myles Garrett has that strip sack to kind of get them back right after that fourth down step, that goal line stand from the Bengals. And that was huge. So if they didn't have that big time play there, they definitely could have let the Bengals back in the game. But the fact that the Bengals were able to stick around this game when the Browns just absolutely dominated this game, it's a little bit of a negative thing there, obviously. So, but I'm not really too worried about the score. They beat them more than the score line. So I'm not really saying the differential there. I'm just saying that the Bengals were. It felt like for a while, the Bengals had a shot. Wasn't really scared the Browns were going to completely blow it and lose the game, but the fact that the Bengals still had a shot there. But again, I'm really excited going forward for this system with the players involved. Glad to see Odell. They're using him quite a bit. I thought Hooper stood out too. Maybe not in the stats department, but I thought he stood out here and there, was able to block, and that's the type of tight end they need in there. So that worked out well. Offensive line, I talked about it. Offensive line was beat out. Even a guy like Hubbard was kind of standing out to me. And again, that's pretty bad. That's bad news for the defensive ends of the Bengals there. But, those guys stood out. But, again, mainly negatives you see here for the Bengals. Like what unit did we see them? We talk about the Browns. Pass protection, offensive line, pass rush, and we specific guys making plays, but everything kind of flowing together with the quarterback, with the running game, with even the receivers. Odell had a big-time game. Every time he touched the ball, though, he put that ball in one hand, kind of stuck it out. That's something I don't want to see him do, but he's going to do it. So we've seen units play very well for the Browns, but for the Bengals, just nothing like that really stood out. But then again, the fact that they were able to stick around might be a positive for the future here for the Bengals. So, that's something to look forward. It's definitely, I think both these teams you can consider teams of the future here. Definitely, but the Bengals, it's easier said than actually done. But getting that offensive line together, if they can do it, it's going to be a scary team, but they do need a little help on defense as well. But I'm confident they'll get it together. Maybe it won't be rapidly. Maybe it won't be, soon, that soon. But I think they'll get it done, and I'm excited about that. Joe Burrow throwing over 60 times, almost 61% completion percentage. If my math's correct there, I'm not looking at the stats, but that's pretty impressive. His weapons need to step up, though. They were a little disappointing. That's something I'm realizing nobody's really talking about too much, but they have, and I kind of looking back to, I thought they were more successful with the, maybe like a 5 wide situation, and that is because they were in obvious passing situations. So the Browns aren't fearing the run. Maybe they fear Mixon a little bit, but in those situations they're coming from behind. We know they got to pass, so you might as well use your weapons. You might as well go 5 wide. And I wouldn't be against putting Mixon in the slot there in those situations. I trust him there, so I would like to see more of that. So maybe a little bit of a knock on the play calling there, play choices in those situations. There was times on there where they would throw in a random play action, which was pointless because Joe Burrow has no time whatsoever anyways. Play action, if you didn't know, takes more time because you have to fake the handoff, obviously. So Burrow needed more time for that to work, and it's obvious pass situation, so you're really not fooling anybody with the run. So I was looking for more of the 5 wide receiver sets, the only reason you don't do that is because the whole planet knows you're passing, but they already knew they were passing anyways. So that was working for Burrow, but then again, he wasn't really able to scan the field, and I think that was a problem too. They were almost dialing up plays where Burrow had to kind of look at almost turn into a one-read guy, which we all know he's not. And that's a knock on the offensive line. So you can't, I guess, fully blame the rest, I guess, if you look at it that way, because it makes it tougher on the play callers. It makes it tougher on Joe Burrow, obviously, and it makes it tougher on the targets as well because, they pretty much have to, we're going to look at you first. I don't have enough time to maybe look at my second read here, so you're pretty much the guy. You have to win, and you can't expect guys to win every time. So, I guess that's the tough part for the weapons. So it's tough to fully judge on that. I think something I noticed early too. I'm kind of going backwards. Maybe a little more man coverage early than I would like. Missing some guys like Trey Waynes. I would like a little more zone against that play action because it's coming. Because the play action. He's going to roll out there. Baker's going to roll out there pretty quick. All it takes is one guy to be open, and chances are in man coverage, one guy will be beat. I think that first play action bomb, which was a beauty to Odell, which I thought he was short, by the way. I was surprised to see that they didn't overturn that, but, whatever. I guess it was pretty close, but that was man coverage. I noticed right away. That was man coverage, and it was a tough, I like me some Jesse Bates, and it was a tough decision to make by Jesse Bates because you see the man coverage across the board, and the only person beat right, and it was a single high free safety, so Jesse Bates. So that was probably the bad situation too, was to have just a single high free man coverage. But Jesse Bates is there to help pretty much. Everyone's in man besides him. Then Darius Phillips was beat by Jarvis Landry right away, just torched right away on a crossing route before the route even started, just beat. Jesse Bates, that's right in front of him. So he sees that. I got to pick up this guy or he's wide open. And that leaves Odell one-on-one at Odell's going to win that one-on-one play action, no pressure, easy throw for Baker Mayfield. So it's tough because single high free, priority number one is to help out on the deeper coverage, but it's tough because he's really not taught not to do what he did. He didn't really do anything wrong there, Jesse Bates, that is. So Phillips got beat pretty bad. So things that kind of go unnoticed on that play is Odell won on that one-on-one. It's a very tough task out there. It's almost a guy away from the play. Phillips, who's only starting because Waynes is out, gets beat. So that's something that kind of goes unnoticed that I actually noticed live. Some other things that, I can look at throughout the week to see if we can notice more things like that. But I thought that was interesting. Single high free, man coverage. I would disagree with that, especially with a team with a successful play action and you're not getting much pass rush. But that was early, so you didn't really have, a full grasp on that. But that was something I noticed that I didn't really like. But I think this is, again, everything's kind of fresh, new for the Bengals. Everything. So everybody will grow. Everybody will get better. And again, the fact that it was pretty disastrous at times and they were still actually sticking around is a positive look, a positive takeaway, I guess, for the future. So, something positive comes out of this. Again, can't stress enough. I am really impressed, really excited for Baker and these weapons in this system. It could work. And, that main takeaway I said right in the beginning that it worked so well with Cousins. The Vikings didn't really win anything last year, but and Cousins ends up being underwhelming at times. But that play action and adding Baker with his ability with his legs, that can make it even better. So that's something that Cousins maybe is missing on that. And that's the positive here with Stefanski. Moving over to this these weapons, these guys. So I'm really excited for the future, even the near future with that system, that group, together. So that's something to look forward to. But again, we'll be back every Thursday or every Friday with the Thursday recap here, and that will do it for this one though. And then every Monday with the Sunday recap, we got all kinds of different predictions, straight up picks with the boys, score predictions, power rankings, all kinds of content here. So please subscribe, turn notifications on, smash that like button if you enjoyed. You're definitely going to want to follow that Twitter. If you're not following it, I think you're missing out there. So we much appreciate if you could check it out. Extra content on the Patreon, of course, link in the description for anything that you need. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.